Hello and welcome to Divinely Empowered with Antonia. Today we have a live in-person guest, Jessica Taylor, Intuitive. Jessica channels the Pleiadians. We're going to find out who the Pleiadians are and all about Jessica's psychic abilities. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
You're very welcome. Who are the Pleiadians?
The Pleiadians are an extraterrestrial race, but there are multiple beings living in multiple different dimensions. And so when I work with the seventh dimensional Pleiadians. And although they speak to me through one individual who's called Kistos, it is a collective channeling. So he is able to tune telepathically into the rest of the collective within his dimension, and that offers an individual kind of perspective as well as a collective one, which reads the energy on a bigger scale.
So they're aliens.
Yes.
Short version. You talk to aliens.
Yes.
And they live, where do the Pleiadians live?
In the constellation of Pleiades, also known as the Seven Sisters. And there's a lot of mythology that goes back with the ancient Greeks and various different ancient civilizations of connection with that consciousness, of connection with Pleiadian consciousness. So I think they've been talking to us for a while, but they're just getting a little bit more vocal and revealing who they are now.
So are there different species within Pleiades?
Yes. And they seem to have their own kind of version of animal life and fauna and that as well. But the beings that I connect with are able to transition between light body and physical form. So they're not quite so fixed in form, and they kind of explain that the higher in frequency you go, the more they are able to move between those states.
So their physical form materializes and dematerializes, so they can walk through walls and stuff, can they? Or they can be corporal.
Well, and they can choose to appear and connect, but they are predominantly telepathic.
Have you ever met them in person?
No, I've always connected with them through meditation or through channeling. So when I first started to connect with them, it was this one being Kistos that I saw more frequently, and he would drop in, and I got used to his energy for quite a few months before the direct voice channeling actually started. So he was letting me know who he was, what his frequency was, and it gave me time to use my discernment to decide whether that was something I wanted to allow a connection with or not.
So how does it work?
So when I channel, I literally just close my eyes and consciously think of Kistos and ask him to come through, and I start to feel a slight shift in my body, and usually then he will say that he's here, and as soon as the kind of words start coming out, my consciousness kind of moves aside, and that is very much like having a dream. So predominantly I don't remember what has been said, but there will be bits of it that I can kind of remember, like when you wake up from a dream where you've been sort of semi-lucid. And so I can still move around, and I don't change that much physically in the way that I speak or anything.
You don't have the weird like body movements and this deep booming voice.
No, the speech is more eloquent and faster.
Okay.
And there you can notice the difference because there's no kind of pauses that you have, often in conversation, and we and make those kind of fillers and breaks, and so it's quite different in that respect, and the way that the phrasing is slightly different, but the voice sounds pretty much the same. And I found that the longer that I channeled for, I'm able to retain a little bit more memory from it. It was like I had to almost be completely consciously moved aside when I first began, so that the ego couldn't come in and penetrate and affect the conversation. But as I stepped into a state of trust and built up that kind of rapport and connection with the channeling, then I was able to I'd get occasional flashes, and also they'll show me sometimes if they are describing something very specific, especially if it's in a personal channeling and they are explaining something for that person, they'll send me visual stuff through as well sometimes. So I'll see like certain colors or geometry sometimes, and various things or symbols as well. They use symbols to kind of communicate further, so that it gives me something to remember, so that when I come out of that channeling, I might know for somebody that they have spoken specifically about something for that person. And so it gives me indication as well, so that I can connect with it on a deeper level.
So why do you think these beings from Pleiades talk to you specifically?
I don't think it's a case of being chosen to do something. I was highly psychic as a child and able to connect with spirits. And so I spent a lot of my earlier years learning how to form that connection and learning how to be discerning and understand different kinds of energies and feel ones that were maybe like that I wouldn't want to connect with and stuff as well. I think it's just a case of, it's something that most of us should be able to do, but we've predominantly been shut down from those abilities. And so as we learn to open up, different modalities of that kind of work will come through for different people. So some people will be energy healers, some people will be channels, some people will do the kind of more conventional style mediumship, which is actually where I begun, bringing through people from the other side to give messages, to their family, loved ones, that kind of thing. That was where I first kind of learned. And that really moved me into a state of trust, because you get a lot more confirmation when you do that conventional mediumship, because it relates to things in a person's material existence. To channel a consciousness where you don't have any physical confirmation of that being takes more trust.
Right.
And especially when they give you sort of things that are kind of precognitive for the trajectory of humanity as well. You're having to really trust that what's coming through and just allow it to happen.
Especially when it sounds bonkers.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think that most people, if they do the work, they can move into a state where they can kind of match that vibration, because that comes into it as well. Because the body experiences a different kind of frequency when that's coming through. And I think, so I had a lot of inner work that I needed to do to be able to then facilitate that vibration when it came through. If I tried to do it a few years ago, it would have left me too vulnerable to unwanted energies and stuff coming through. And also I wouldn't have been in resonance with that Pleiadian consciousness in order to bring it through. So I think it's something that we can do and we can access, but it does take some work to move ourselves into a state where we can facilitate it physically without being too tired, and where we can actually trust that kind of consciousness and learn to discern how to bring it through.
Do you think you were Pleiadian in past lives?
So my understanding of past lives works in a non-linear sense, because that's what I've kind of learned from them.
Okay.
So they've kind of explained that the process of incarnation, although we see it in a very linear way, and that's relevant for the human experience, that helps us to have a human experience and engage with that. Essentially, all of the incarnations are dropping in at once. So it's like there is a spark from source energy that moves out and disperses itself through multiple dimensions, multiple layers of frequency. And that is essentially a soul group, or what we understand as a soul group. And that is how we would perceive our other incarnations. So some of those parts of energy will appear to be in the past, and that's our past life. But some of them will be in different dimensions, such as Pleiades. And so on that level, they've explained to me that, particularly with Kistos, he's like another aspect of my soul energy, which is why I tune into him specifically. But he is in a state where he is able to connect with a collective consciousness, so he can bring through more than just an individualized perspective. But essentially, a lot of the energies that we are very aligned with and able to connect with and tune is because at soul level, we kind of have a nebulous connection with that.
So you think there's another version of you living in Pleiadian galaxy?
Living everywhere. Living in all different
How many
all
do you
different
think there
dimensions.
are?
I think we have thousands.
Thousands
Not in all
of
cases,
parallel lives happening all at once.
Yeah.
Thousands.
I think so. Because there are so many possibilities. You've not only got the various levels of frequency, which creates within each frequency there are multiple dimensions as well. So the multiple experiences.
Making my head hurt, girl.
They have said that some of the kids that are coming in at the moment, sort of over the last 10 years or so, that there's been some that are coming in with much fewer incarnations in different places. So they might only have a handful. So they're the ones that are coming in very strongly connected to galactic energy, because they don't have the same clouding of having multiple experiences in the human dimension too. So they don't have like their past lives in Egypt and their past lives in like very low kind of vibrational systems. They're literally just coming out as one spark and able to connect really with the higher frequencies.
But isn't that what Jesus is supposed to be, a direct incarnation of the divine?
Yeah, it's
sourced straight into body.
Yeah, so it's not that
an avatar.
That it's only happening now, but it's happening more commonly now, that there are people that are just kind of coming straight through and very connected to higher frequencies and don't have much karmic entanglement with the lower frequencies.
We're going to get superpowered people coming through then.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we're stepping into a state where the vibration is collectively lifting because of all these beings that are coming in, all these kids that are coming in really high frequency, and people that are also learning to shift into higher states of frequency. That's going to trigger a kind of resonance that will create a response where we will see many more people who, you know, older people, younger people, all across the board, who are beginning to develop telepathic capabilities that they might not have previously had.
Okay, so what Siddhis, which is another word for spiritual superpowers, do you think are going to be coming through?
The Pleiadians, the main thing that they've said is that our communication will become a lot more telepathic. And they have spoken about children that are coming through with spectrum disorders, who are coming through highly telepathic. And that's where their communication comes through. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of the telepathy tapes.
I have listened to them.
Yes. Okay. So that a lot of that comes into play, that the communication becomes less necessary to be so based from the body and through the emotions.
Well, do you know what? There's a problem with the telepathy tapes. I don't know if you're aware of it. I listen to Joe Rogan religiously, and there was somebody else who he's just had on who is a mentalist.
Okay.
I don't know what his name was, but he was a mentalist and he's absolutely great. And he was saying that the way that, because he was able to figure out what Joe's PIN number was and various different things. And he said, you know, who, like, think about this fighter and think about these different things. And he managed to somehow manipulate Joe into saying a particular person and a particular thing, and he wrote it on an envelope, and at the end of the episode he was like, ta-da!
Yeah, which is what Darren Brown does as well.
Yes,
that kind of
but
thing.
he looked at the telepathy tapes and he said that they were guiding those people, and actually you could get those results.
Okay.
So he said that it sounds like it's great, and he didn't really want to piss on anyone's parade. However, that would be something that he would be able to recreate quite easily.
Okay.
So I want it to be true, and he wanted it to be true, but I don't know. I mean, and some of the things, like, hopefully they are. I don't know. I want it to be true. But this mentalist was saying that, I mean, Joe was suggesting for them to meet and to see if they could do things in a bit of a better test environment, because it's not very good test, and because they're holding on to each other, you can gesture, and there are loads of different things you can do on a conscious or subconscious level and get those sorts of results.
I do wonder, though, sometimes when people come in that situation, like I've had my curiosities about Darren Brown, whether there is an aspect of intentional opposition to.
He's saying that psychics don't exist. That's the other side, that he was saying that psychics don't actually exist and that people are doing things in a different way. I don't know.
No, I'd be very skeptical about anyone that says that. And are they, like, what place are they coming from? Are they saying that to keep consciousness down so that people don't actually start to tune into these higher powers?
I don't know. I don't know the answer, but he did say, I'm not sure about that. Okay, so tell me about fear.
Okay, so the fear paradigm is overwhelmingly powerful, and we are programmed with it constantly. And the reason that we are programmed with it constantly is because it keeps us small. It keeps us in states of lower consciousness. Because when you are in a state of survival, you shut down a lot of your intuition, because you go into the ego, and the ego wants to have a human experience, so it does whatever it can to lock you into a human experience. If you had no ego, there'd be no point in the incarnation, because you wouldn't be learning anything. So you just go straight up and be in light body and be back in source and be back in higher energy.
It's very the ego is vilified.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's necessary for the human experience, and that we've chosen to come here in this body, in this reality, and have an ego to have that experience. But
I don't think ego's a bad thing. I think it's vilified. I think you don't be an arsehole.
It's bad when it runs the show and doesn't allow you to have any
collaboration.
Yeah. And that's what the fear paradigm kind of brings you into, that state where you're egoic, in the sense that you are working like just with the lower energy centers. Often the heart chakra gets shut down, and we don't work and send our energy up through the whole body's chakra system. And so we move into states of fear, and that makes us very easy to manipulate and control, which we've seen.
It's the whole thing about you should build a longer table, not a higher wall,
Yeah.
And I think it's fear that makes you scared of other people. Whereas, if you were open-hearted and generous, people would be surprised how beautiful the world is. The more you are kind to other people, the more beautiful your experience becomes.
Yeah.
And fear, it's like this thing where people who cheat think that everybody's cheating, and people who steal think that everybody's stealing, because that's their mindset.
Their observation of reality, and that's what they create within their own reality.
Because they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you're living in fear, then there's loads of scary stuff. But if you manage to step outside of it and move into more of a loving frequency, then actually the world reflects back that to you.
And it's not that difficult to do. I think people get very much sort of obsessed with staying in that state because it's what they're comfortable with. It's actually what they're used to. They might not think they're comfortable with it and want to remove from it, but actually it can be quite scary to just go, okay, I'm going to trust. I'm going to step into a different state, because you start experiencing a different reality. But once you can do that, you start experiencing a different reality, because you are engaging with frequencies where you see more of that same thing being reflected to you. And that becomes the observation becomes the reality.
Okay. What's your view on demons and rituals then?
I think that they are given too much power because of people's belief in them. So essentially, rituals are a way to access a certain type of energy. Same as using tarot cards, same as using crystal balls, whatever modality you want to use. It's like rituals have a similar kind of purpose. They bring you into a certain state so that you can receive a type of energy, or so that you can align with a type of energy. But it's not actually that necessary. As we are now shifting into a state of higher consciousness as a species, we are able to access that higher consciousness, those higher states, without ritual. And ritual is almost becoming something that can hold us back, because it's making us think that we need our power to be facilitated by something else. And of course, there are circumstances where people are using ritual to access very low frequency energies, believing that they have power, but misunderstanding that so much of what we create comes from our own energy and our own power. So therefore, a lot of the results of ritual practice, which somebody, if they practice that ritual, they attribute the success that they might experience from that to the ritual, and it's to do with their own specific energy. So all the nasty things that are sometimes done in rituals, they're not necessary, but they give the person that sense of power.
No, I don't agree with that, because what happens is, there are different styles of magic. There's high level magic and lower level magic. What you're speaking about is high level magic, which is you connecting to source and awakening your own God self, and then you have abilities as a result of that. Lower level magic is using a ceremony or something as a being in it. The most powerful form of lower level magic is sacrificial magic. If you slit someone's throat, you get that energy, that battery, that charge from that death. But it's got power to it. It actually, we can have a little debate if you like. There is power to it. So the softest death magic is ejaculation, sex magic. So if the sperm doesn't impregnate somebody, but they ejaculate, then it's called in French, it's called le petit mort, the little death. When you ejaculate, but that nobody becomes pregnant, and that's death magic. So that's the entry level death magic. Sex magic is death magic. And then you could, like, if you want to really get a bang for your buck, then you get them to ejaculate and you slit their throat at the same time. Then you get that. Or the more beings that you kill, the bigger the charge of energy. And then you can divert that death magic to be doing something. There is a power source to it.
My point of kind of contradiction is whether that actually is genuinely coming from the energy of the person who has been used, or whether it is coming from the intensity of the practitioner's belief in that power. And I think that's something that is still ambiguous to us.
I'll tell you what's interesting about your point is there's like an African death stick. I don't know, Africa's a continent, but it's called the African death stick. I don't know which country it's from. Anyway, so some tribes have this death stick, and what they do is if you've done something abhorrent, you raped or murdered or something, which the tribe doesn't accept, then they will hit you with the death stick. It doesn't have to be like a fatal blow to the head. It's just like they hit you with the death stick and see you later, alligator. However, they did it to some other people, some explorers, some missionaries who did something abhorrent for whatever reason, and they hit them with it. And the white man was like, snaff off with your death stick. I don't give a monkeys about it. And they didn't die, which was quite interesting.
The Aborigines have the same practice, like pointing sticks, and they will attribute someone to, like, a couple of guys from the tribe to literally chase somebody through the whole of the outback, like, if necessary, to point their sticks at them, and that person, dies from them. And I think that is,
but it's letting things in. So black magic is quite interesting. So there's a difference between hoodoo and voodoo. So hoodoo is voodoo is the religion, and hoodoo is the witchy stuff. The black magic stuff. So you have to, for black magic to work, you have to accept it or allow it in some way. So what they would do is, if they're putting a spell on you, they would then put the like a dead chicken with a head cut off on your doorstep, and then you'd be like, holy shit, they've done a curse on me.
And move into fear.
Moving into fear, but that you acknowledging it and you go, that is, you're accepting it, you're allowing it, and then it works, but you have to have accepted it for it to work. So I think that is the thing, but I do think there is a power source behind slitting someone's throat.
It's something that I've been channeling a little bit about, and it seems to be one of those subjects where they don't want to drop the whole thing in one go, because there are so many levels to it that it's bringing in piece by piece.
I want to know about that. We're going to find out. We're going to get you to channel and tell us more about death magic.
And they do talk about demons a lot as well, and they're not saying that there aren't any and they don't exist. I mean, they perceive them as being beings from lower frequencies who are able to basically affect somebody, because either consciously or unconsciously, they've chosen to move into a frequency that's in alignment with that. So they say that when you lift yourself into a very high vibration, it's very difficult to be affected by.
See, I think they target you. So look, I've done quite a lot of stuff with demons, and I used to be like a mega slayer, like Buffy.
Yeah,
I was slaying a lot of demons, and there's been a lot of demons.
I did that as a kid quite a lot.
Yeah. I became a big slayer, like a lot. And then there was like vendettas, and there was this whole thing, and it all got a bit out of hand, not really to me but to other people around me, and it was just a bit bullshit. So I decided to really look at the situation, and that people were saying that they send them back to where they belong. But where do they belong, and what is that? But actually I realized they were slaves, and that if you send them back to where they belong, they go back to the slave master. Then I was like, okay, so I think what they're doing is a couple of things. One, they're stealing a loaf of bread to feed their family, and actually you can't really be angry about that. And two, they don't know any different or any better, and they're under orders, under the guise that they will die if they don't do whatever they're ordered to do. They are, they're slaves, and they have to follow orders. So what I decided to do was look at things in a different way and start freeing them. So I thought what I would do was, so I've created a lot of portals, and I've built a lot of dimensions, a lot of planets for demons, and I send them into their retirement. So I became a divine travel agent rather than a slayer. So I retire them onto beautiful planets where they've got all the food that they would want, all the everything. So for me, that would be like the Ritz-Carlton in the Bahamas. However, demons don't like the Ritz-Carlton in the Bahamas, so I've had to make more like Gotham.
Okay.
They're into Gotham. So I've made loads of different dimensions and I've retired them so they're no longer slaves and they can live out their lives in sort of peace and harmony with all the abundance that they need. And then they started like wanting to back me and be nice to me and to help me and to protect me because I'm saving demons and helping them, because actually from a higher perspective, they were slaves, and why not rescue them rather than battle them or slay them and have all this bullshit to deal with? They're following orders and they don't have an option, and they just got trapped in that. So if you can just, and sometimes they still come for me. It's quite unusual these days, but there is a like lead or gold situation. Do you want to die? Because I can very easily explode like a lot of them, or I can send them to paradise of their choosing with their species.
Yeah, and I think you've got the added aspect into that everything is drawn towards something that's in a higher resonance.
Yeah.
So when it comes to people having attachments, quite often they get energetic attachments from low-level entities because they are in a state of lower vibration themselves. And you see that quite often with people with serious addictions, they will have attachments because their vibration is constantly being lowered, so it makes them more accessible. But their vibration is still higher than the entities that are attaching to them, because we're always drawn to something that's in a higher frequency. And so we kind of we're like same as wanting to connect with ETs that are in high frequencies, because when we actually make that connection, it lifts our own vibration up. So I think it is that kind of, sometimes they're actually just trying to piggyback to lift themselves out of a low frequency dimension.
That's another thing. That's nice. They tend to want to go. They tend to be very grateful, actually, sending them to their own version of paradise. They're like, they're happy with it. Do the Pleiadians have any messages for humanity?
So predominantly everything, the reason that they come through and the reason that they speak with us is to bring through messages to help us to move into states of higher frequency. They're here to help us with the shift from third dimension into fifth dimensional energy and frequency.
What's happened to the fourth dimension, by the way?
We just like it's not. It doesn't carry quite such a kind of significant. It's like a transitional stage.
But I just feel like we're jumping.
No, it's like
why are we jumping over
and
four?
we just kind of, I think we moved like so quickly between third and fifth at the moment that it's like it just doesn't really come into play. And it's the same with the sixth. So fifth to, like, they reckon that we'll jump from fifth to seventh within quite a short time within humanity.
So they don't like even numbers.
No, I think it's just generally across, but it's like the fourth and the sixth are just kind of bridge stages, and we don't actually interact with them that much. It's like the moments where we're kind of maybe literally feeling in between the two, feeling in between flow state and feeling in between like force state rather than flow. But their kind of main message is they bring through as much as they can to help us to understand how we are able to move into a higher frequency. So how we are able to start mastering our thoughts, understanding vibration, and how much vibration and how we create that vibration creates the reality that we're experiencing, so that we can start moving into states where manifestation is easier, for example. But at the moment, we don't quite understand the power of manifestation. So often we focus on trying to manifest something that's for our higher purpose and something that we want to experience, without realizing that we also often bring ourselves into lower states because our thought processes so quickly are taken down into negative processes. And therefore, if we are able to create very high level manifestation, we're also able to create very low level manifestation,
like disease.
So it's understanding. So they're trying to get us into a state where we can understand that, so that we become much more conscious of that. And their message is generally about empowerment, about getting us to realize that we are a crystallized version of the divine spark. The divinity is within us, and we do hold that power when we learn to reconnect with source energy and move ourselves into higher states. Like, the power is always there. It's just the human experience brings us the perception that it's not, so that we can have a human experience. But it's now time to start being more reconnected with that power.
If they're real, Where are they? Is there a prime directive? Why are the Pleiadians not incarnate, saying hello and leading humanity into greatness? We've got all these wars. We're about to go to war in all these different places. Don't we need mummy or daddy to step in and tell us what the fuck's going on and to stop the nuclear wars, which are apparently looming?
They've said that there are some of them from, I think, more sixth and fifth dimensional, who are more permanently in physical bodies, who are able
So there are
to
some
be
Pleiadians now
amongst us. But
Is it you? Are you a Pleiadian?
I don't think so. It'd be so cool.
I'd really like my mate to be an alien. That'd be great.
But they have said that the reason that they don't just come and appear to us as in it, like, so I can see them when I'm in a state of meditation, but they don't come and appear in the middle of my living room, because they are saying it doesn't matter how much I might like the idea of that happening,
Freak you out.
It would freak me out, yeah, and it would actually move me into a state of fear rather than
I know, but could you just not meet them at the beach or the pub or something?
I don't know, maybe we do though. The ones that are able to
I know, but why they say, hello, what was it?
Kistos.
Kistos, yeah. Hello, I'm Kistos. Can't we go for a little walk on the cliff in a minute?
He just jumps in and has a little chat through me sometimes.
No, but
they have said that we're moving into a state where our consciousness is becoming expanded enough that they will be able to start appearing. And I think this is like quite imminent. We're talking within probably less than 5 years. We'll start actually seeing those physical manifestations of them here as they're able to. But
so can we start dating aliens?
Their frequency is too high to just appear, because they could get trapped in our dimension until we've lifted our consciousness enough that they can resonate with that. And that's where we're moving to. So,
are you planning on dating an alien?
That'd be good. That'd be good. I'm maybe not so confident in the human population. I'm kidding. Humans are great.
I'm just wondering what it'd be like to date a Pleiadian. I don't know. I have no idea.
What can they instantly manifest? That'd be fun.
Don't know. Goodness, the mind boggles. Okay, so do you think there is something like a prime directive? So for anyone who's unaware of the prime directive, it's a term from Star Trek, which is basically they're not allowed to interfere with us too much. Otherwise, it can cause the species it's just not good for the species for a big ET to come down and to say, look at us, because we end up worshipping them as gods, and it's dangerous for the development of the species.
And it has prevented our growth in the past when those kind of situations have happened. They might have come and helped, but then after they've left, there's been belief systems put in that takes the belief out of the individual human in having any power, and they think that it's all at the hands of something else. So that they've learned from those mistakes. Also, they know that the human experience is about learning, and it's about learning to raise our own consciousness ourselves. So it's not for them, it's not appropriate for them to come and just do that for us, but we do have the choice to open up and make connections with them, which does lift our consciousness, but we have to choose to engage with that. And that also, so they are able to come through now and guide us, but if it comes to anything that is going to affect like the galactic community, such as we might be aware of some of the videos where nuclear missiles have been sent into space and they've been detonated by ET craft, by random kind of manifestations of stopping that power from being able to be in place. So if it's something that could cause an effect throughout the galaxy, then they will intervene, because it's for their own safety as well.
So you said they've been worshipped as God in the past. Do you think the Greek or Norse or some gods were actually Pleiadian?
Yeah.
Oh, tell me more.
I think so. I think especially with the ancient Egyptians, I think there's a lot more from Sirius and Orion in the ancient Egyptian civilizations. And there does seem to be quite a connection with the Norse and the Celtic people and Pleiadian energy. And also there's an island in Sardinia where there have been many of these giant skeletons found, and the people of Sardinia say that they're from Pleiades. And there's a blood group that seems to correlate with many lands where these skeletons have been found, where the people claim that it's from Pleiades as well. So I think they've been here in physical form, and they are really big. When you kind of perceive their energy, they're really big.
Or like giants?
Yeah, like sort of 12 to 16 foot.
Oh, like the Anunnaki? Are the Anunnaki?
I think no, they're a different
species.
system. They
or the Nephilim.
they have spoken about the Anunnaki and said that actually it's the same with a lot of situations on this planet and on other planets where actually predominantly most of the Anunnaki were here for benevolent reasons, but you get the odd few that ruin it for everybody else. So they haven't said specifically which star system they're from, but there seems to have been a lot of like an influence from various systems there. And they do speak as well about Draco and the influence of reptilian beings. And one of the things that they've brought through about that is that there is a coup on Draco. I know, big news.
Mic drop.
And that that basically this planet has been in resonance with some of the Draco system for a long time. And there is a kind of intermingling of the elements of control throughout both systems, because the ones in power on both systems understand that if the resonance of one system rises, of one planet rises, one star system rises, it's going to bring the other one up to match.
Ooh.
And so it's still something I'm learning more about from them, but they have essentially said there are a lot of beings on Draco who are wishing to move into higher dimensions too, and are starting to communicate telepathically and channel through humans because they're working for the same outcome. They're working for the awakening. So the Great Awakening is not just on Earth.
You heard it here first. Okay, is there anything that the Pleiadians want us to know specifically?
Specifically to be aware of the way that you create your own reality. Allow yourself to be the divinity that you actually are and start transcending the human form. There are many ways which you can start to learn to do this, but just actually even having that awareness that we are all part of something much bigger and that our consciousness creates our reality starts to shift our reality.
Well, I've got plenty more questions. Do you at home have questions too? I want her to channel. I want to find out exactly, hear it properly, what's going on, and get to learn from the Pleiadians what's going on. So with that in mind, on the 3rd of July at 7 p.m. British Standard Time, we're going to get Jess back and we're going to be doing a live Q&A. And you at home, please send in your questions. Comment below with your questions and let us know what you want to know. And we'll ask specific questions from...
We'll get right in there.
Get right in there and find out. So yes, 3rd of July at 7 p.m. BST. Leave your questions below. Okay, so... to contact you and also drop Jess a follow on...
you can find my work at jessicataylorintuitive.net, and all my social media handles are at Jessica Taylor Intuitive. There's updates on events and offers and things there.
Great. Any final words of wisdom?
No, I think we'll save it for when they want to speak.
Alrighty, I will see you on the 3rd of July. Bye-bye.